I have no social media presence. I have a LinkedIn account where I maybe share links to my blog post couple of times a year. That's about it. So I'm not hooked onto social media. I don't consume social media.
You're not even passively looking at things.
No, I don't log into any social media. But somebody shares a link on one of our groups, I click and I read. But apart from that, I don't look at social media.
Why?
I think it was a very early decision. I signed up on Twitter in 2008, I think. So because I was living on the internet, I could see how these platforms evolved. Facebook started out as a university network, and the day it shifted to a public network, I really saw the change. This was late 2000s. And I decided to not be on social media way back then. And I just had a sense that it would do more harm than good. Social media has done a lot of good. It's amplified a lot of voices that would never have been amplified either. But if you look at the last 5+ years globally, you'd see that social media is really the root cause of a lot of problems. And the damage it does to society as a whole outweighs the good it does exponentially. So you have to look at the trade-off. Social media does good, but social media also does insane amounts of bad.
Can you mention two of them, that negative side of social media that you see is most glaring for you?
I mean, so large social media, centralized social media platforms, which is the whole of the social media bubble, the activity there is driven by incentives of financial, let's say, advertising revenue or whatever, or increasing engagement for the companies who run them. And this is very well studied and understood and very well talked about, right? So stuff that gets amplified, content that gets amplified on social media becomes viral. It's not really based on its quality or its merit to society. It's based on whatever the algorithms do. And the algorithms decide, or what the social media company decides to amplify to drive revenue. It's that simple. So social media is not a natural entity where good conversations naturally spread. It is entirely algorithmic, and the algorithms have a clear incentive to drive more eyeballs. So just that one thing will tell you what sort of content gets amplified, right? So stuff that appeals to the worst of humanity, disinformation, misinformation, peddling. So whatever drives eyeballs, these things automatically optimize for that.
Got it.
And this whole thing about being the world's town square, I completely disagree with that concept, because a human being is not built out to chat with tens of thousands of people. A human being is not, we don't have the cognitive capacity to consume information from tens of thousands of people that we follow, or hundreds of people. Human beings that's not how relationships work, that's not how communication works, that's not how group dynamics work, right? And yet social media somehow has deluded people into thinking that you can be in the world's town square speaking to tens of thousands of millions of people. That's just fundamentally incompatible with our, with our brains, how we work. So it's a flawed concept, and we've seen how social media has even started interfering with democracies. Even the last US election and social media's involvement in it was a global talking point, right? That's when regulators, etc., suddenly woke up. So, of course, I didn't foresee or predict any of this, let's say 13 or 15 years ago, but I just had the sense that from using simple common sense, that this whole global town square where everyone speaks to everyone else, it just can't work.
We look at Twitter, what people are talking, some people who we want to follow, sane voices, etc. So what about you? How do you sort of form your worldview?
It's tricky, because what you consume, how do you even know that? With so much information and content that's being produced by professionals, by amateurs, by everyone across different kinds of social media, millions, if not billions of bits of content that's being produced. How do you, as a human being, decide what to consume, right? And if you open a social media platform where stuff is being constantly bombarded, I don't think it's shaping your worldview the right way. So I don't think there's a right way to shape your worldview. You really have to exercise your critical thinking, common sense. You have to have a decent context of history to judge today's human behavior, because it's all really happened in the past. And then you pick and choose and then stick to that. So I read regional news, I read national news, a little bit of global news from news websites. I frequent very particular small little, let's say, tech forums. and I'm limited to that. I'm not listening to dozens of podcasts. I don't think I've listened to a podcast in a long time. I listen to audiobooks. I read books that I prefer reading, and I think I'm reasonably well informed of what's happening around the world. But if you open social media, the stuff happening every single second of the day, the stuff happening in every country, important events, how can a single human being make sense of any of this? So I think there's a big misunderstanding, collective misunderstanding, that constant consumption of information keep us well informed. I think it just really ruins our brain in itself, messes with our attention, messes with our ability to consume information properly, process it properly. There's no time to process. It's just non-stop. So I think being off on social media and just sticking to calmer content will help you be informed better, and it's literally good for your brain.
For stories like this, keep following us. From Code to Culture, our podcast. Subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media.